It has been 5 days since my girlfriend broke up with me. We were together for a year and 9 months, and I was in love with her. I was convinced that I was going to marry this girl. I was so excited to spend the rest of my life with her, and to me, it seemed like everything was great and we were compatible, and so when she said she wanted to break up, I was like, "Go!"
No, please.
So after a couple of days, which included crying sessions, playing a shit ton of video games, and talking to friends via FaceTime because of the coronavirus, I decided to revisit my go-to heartbreak movie, Forgetting Sarah Marshall. This absolute gem of a movie is about a guy named Peter who decides to go to Hawaii to forget about his ex-girlfriend. Her name is Sarah Marshall. Little does he know, Sarah is actually at the same resort with her new boyfriend. Hijinks ensue. And man, is this movie good. It's so comfy. It doesn't feel like a normal movie even. It's not a typical comedy, and it's not a typical rom-com. It's not about manufacturing conflict and making a cheesy ending. It's more about setting up the environment and these characters. The movie has a weird pacing. It's not concerned with the traditional structure. It's just about Peter's time on the island. As Peter gets to know hotel staff and makes friends, so do we. The movie takes us through his journey and we experience it like he does. We spend some relaxing time at a Hawaiian resort where the stakes are low and the vibes are good. It's the perfect environment to decompress after a breakup. You're so busy getting to know all these other small characters that you don't even notice that the story isn't really moving. Before you know it, by the end, Peter is bonded to these people and so are we. We've relaxed, we've relieved some stress, and now we're ready to get back into the world. The typical rom-com random-ass conflict that needs to be resolved right at the end is actually understandable. It doesn't come out of nowhere. It isn't because of any misunderstandings, it's a temporary misalignment of priorities. When it happens, all the parties go their separate ways and it doesn't feel contrived. This really separates it from all the other movies in its genre, especially the ones that came around the same time. While something like Maid of Honor is a guilty pleasure for me, it's basically a fairy tale. It doesn't really have a foot in reality. Forgetting Sarah Marshall doesn't mess around with the characters and push them in directions they don't belong in. Everything in it just works together, and it's so real. It's a great combination of humor and sadness, and it helps me whenever I'm heartbroken. There's a real care to the material because it comes from a real place. It's not too dramatic and it's not too focused on comedy. It's a perfect balance of weird and heartfelt. Sarah Marshall helps me a lot when I watch it because of this. It feels like something that could happen in real life with just a little bit of an optimistic bent at the end. I always felt like Peter, so while he goes through everything, I was able to really empathize. The great thing about this movie is that everyone here is a three-dimensional being. There's no comically evil people. It's a bunch of people with their own motivations and life philosophies. It's a canvas with a lot of complete elements to it. Peter isn't a dumb oaf, he just makes dumb decisions because he's heartbroken. That speaks to me. I mean, he spent 5 years with Sarah Marshall, they had a life together, they had memories, and not all of it was bad. It's a good and heartfelt representation of how some relationships can be. Sarah and Peter both get these small flashbacks of what they miss, what they don't miss, and they think about whether separating was a mistake or not. You also get a good look into why Sarah does what she does, and I think that's so important. Every breakup is different, right? But typically stories aren't about both parties. Often ex-girlfriends serve as plot devices and aren't fully realized characters. Sometimes Sarah Marshall isn't the best. Especially when you learn more about her, she can seem like a really bad girlfriend. But Peter isn't blameless. She has this little monologue about her trying everything to get Peter out of his depression, and you realize that these two just aren't right for each other. And while Peter might be the protagonist of the movie, it's not as if he's the one that's automatically on the right side of the breakup. It paints breakups as these really intimate but also really complicated things, and I think that's super helpful. My girlfriend broke up with me, but I don't think she's a bad person. She said something to the effect of, "I'm not in love with you anymore." And while that really fucking hurts, it's no one's fault. I think that when you're growing up and you're immature, it's really easy to take a breakup badly. It's really easy to assign bad feelings to your ex. It's easy to hear from family and friends stuff like, "Oh, she wasn't good to you anyway," even when that might not necessarily be true. So yeah, Sarah Marshall does some petty and bad things, and maybe she's not right for Peter, but she did try, and that should count for something. One of my favorite parts of the movie is seeing what happens to Peter after Hawaii. You can really see that something has changed in him. He doesn't mope for a month, but he mopes for a day, and then changes up his routine. Seeing Peter pick himself up and be happy with or without someone in his life is heartwarming. It makes the ending all that much sweeter. It's cool that Peter's self-actualization isn't tied to any other character. For him to be happy and for him to be successful, he doesn't need a Rachel or Sarah. He just needs to be himself. Rachel is just a very welcome bonus. Oh man, speaking of Rachel, as Peter gets to know her, you can see that she's good for him. They're compatible, and she encourages Peter to do what he's too afraid to do. Peter also helps her grow too, and together they have a very comfy chemistry. Yes, I know I say comfy a lot, but hey, this movie is just really comfy. Also, I'm going through a breakup, so if you say anything bad, you're just being mean. Joking. Half joking. But what Rachel represents is really important. She's the future, and sometimes when you're wallowing in that breakup sadness, you need to see that light at the end of the tunnel. Sure, not everyone's light is going to be Mila Kunis, but by God, we will all find someone else. This movie is the perfect breakup movie. You got the sadness, you got the wallowing, you got the attempts to get over someone, you get the conflict, you get the reconciliation of what the relationship was really like, and you get a glimpse of what the future could hold. I highly recommend watching this movie, but for best effect, I would watch it in times of heartbreak. Thanks for watching. Stay cool and stay fleshy. And special continued thanks to my patrons, Matej54, Paul Nicholson, and Mecca Messiah. And also, for all of you out there who may be experiencing heartbreak, I feel you guys. It gets better. At least that's what I hear.